Great. And we're live. So, welcome everybody to this remote interview. My name is Lisette, and I'm interviewing people and companies doing great things remotely. And today, all the way from the UK, I have Sarah Fern. And Sarah, you are the Chief People Officer at Velocity Global, which is a platform that allows you to hire, manage, and pay talent from anywhere. So a board like allowing you to have a borderless workforce. We're going to totally dive into that. But first, I want to start with our opening question, which is what does your virtual office look like? And what do you need to get your work done?
Lisette, it's such a pleasure to meet you today. It's so thrilled to be speaking with you. I have been holding remote roles for a long time, even before it was popular. And so all I really need is a laptop and a clear space around me. I like to scribble down, and I always have lots of paper and lots of books. But when I'm on calls, when I'm talking to someone, I just need a really clear area around me, and maybe a bit of a nice smelling candle or a window, a view somewhere. I love to have a view. So the more chaotic the surrounding, the more chaotic my brain feels. So I need a kind of a clean environment around me if I can. But really, as you say, when you are working remotely, you don't actually need much. You need a camera, you need your laptop, maybe headphones, maybe a cup of tea. Mine is too hot to drink. I just prepared it. And off you go.
All right, indeed. Like I agree with you. And I have colleagues that can work in total chaos. And I'm like you, I really need it to be quiet and clear and clean. And chaos might be behind me, but that's fine. So I love that. I love that. So I would like one of the reasons why I wanted to talk with you, and we'll talk about Velocity Global in just a second, but there was something in your in the email that was sent to me where it said why a hybrid model misses the mark, why you feel the hybrid model misses the mark. And I'm very excited to dive into that with you. Why do you feel the hybrid model misses the mark?
Lizette, thank you for asking the question. It's almost a controversial topic to talk about these days because there's so many arguments going around every day, in the press and the kind of, social media. What's the right way? And that pandemic wave where people worked from home, it seems to have stopped, where employers are now saying, come back to the office or come back 2 or 3 days a week. And a lot of workers comply because maybe they've been fired recently. There've been a lot of layoffs. And so it seems to be shifting a little bit. And I heard someone say yesterday the word collision, and I'm going to copy it. And it really resonated with me. It feels like a collision is going on right now. We've talked to death almost about what's the right way, how many days a week, how do we do it? And actually, it's a total car crash right now because people are all over the place. People want to work remotely. People want to be in an office. They're not quite sure how many days a week. Leaders or managers or bosses demand the return to the office. Twitter and similar have been, all over social media recently, and it's caused a collision truly. And the reason why I say that, we have outgrown these conversations, I think, is because let's really think about what's at the heart of it. Is it really about hybrid, or is it about trust? Is it about efficiency? Is it about, doing the work I came to do? In other words, are we as an organization able to trust our workers, trust our employees to get the work done that they came to do here? And do we really care as long as that work happens? Do we really care whether it's hybrid or not? And, you and I, we both work remotely a lot of the times. And you asked me about the kind of ideal, home office or remote setup. And there isn't one because it could be different tomorrow. It could be different the week after. And so how do we expect people to, go onto a spreadsheet and say, okay, I'm going to be in the office every Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday? Am I going to be at my most productive? What type of work am I going to be doing? Am I going to sit in meetings all day? That might be quite productive, being together in person. That can be very productive. Or am I going to, like I did in my last company before the pandemic even, you have remote global teams and you sit in a physical office, but you have your door shut all day because you're on phone calls with the rest of the world on Zoom all day. no one has access to you. You might be in an office, but people don't have access to you because you're already speaking to other people. So in other words, for me, this is about something very different. Are people able to work? Are people able to thrive? Are people able to perform? Are people able to learn, to collaborate? And if they can, and they deliver really good work, what's this debate? What does it matter?
Well, I think there lies the crux. I don't think everybody is delivering really good work, or that it feels like the culture of the organization is suffering. Like the bonds, when we don't see each other every once in a while, the bonds do loosen. And it's not that we can't have bonds online. I had a virtual colleague for 9 years, and she was one of my closest friends, and I'd never met her in person. It was so weird. So it does happen, but people have to work really hard for it. But uh, I would say, what happens? What do we do then? Now we're in this collision. What do you see the path forward being?
Lisette, I think the companies that really want to have that debate, I think it is about listening. It's about, asking some questions. If I look around my team, really understanding, how do people do good work? And for some people, it is remote. For others, it might be a bit of a mix. And for others, working at home or working remotely doesn't work so well, or maybe it used to, but not anymore. And so I think it is about giving people choices. I think even saying remote work wins and remote work is the best, even that can be a, controversial statement, because for some people, they've just had that for a number of years. And they cannot wait to get out of the house. They cannot wait to get out of the small apartment, or maybe there's a baby next door and, it's noisy, or they've got to be quiet. We have a lot of countries in our company. We have 53 countries and growing. And not everyone's house is set up in a way that you have your own space. Not everyone is able to close a door. So actually having the opportunity to rent an office nearby, or have a global network that your company offers, where you could, go and spend some time, with people that you don't know, but they're also in similar positions and they're all working, in co-working spaces. In other words, connect with your people and listen and really understand what is it they need so they can be productive, And I think age and experience can come into it. If you are 20 and you're just starting out, and maybe this is your first or second job, working from home or being remote, who do I ask the questions? Who do I connect with? I may not have the experience or the wisdom or the answers, or the knowledge to help myself. I don't know, I'm lost, I don't know who to talk to. And so I think as companies we have to think about all of that, and we, in a nutshell, we must never make an assumption, because the moment we make an assumption about how our teams want to work, we're probably getting it wrong.
So it's interesting. We've moved from this state of stability and like the office is the way it is. And now everything is in flux. It's like lots of moving parts. There are no stable, like because people's needs also change over time. So we're adapting to the people's needs, which I agree. And it's changing, it's wiggly or flowing over time. So we're in this total flexible state. It's an uncomfortable place to be. I can imagine. So lots to dive into there, but I want to ask first, you are the chief people officer at a company called Velocity Global, and you said you were working with countries, 53 different countries. I would love to know first, what is Velocity Global? Give you a chance to explain it.
Thank you, Lisette. Velocity Global help companies around the world to employ, onboard, and employ workers across the world. And if you like, we are the back office. If you think about a company going to Japan, I don't have the legal setup, I don't have the benefits there, I don't know what I'm doing, I can't pay someone. Velocity Global takes that, and we have legal entities in 185 countries around the world, and growing. And so, if you think about the pandemic, and this model was here before, of course, but, you may have a really, really amazing worker on your books, and they've moved to Norway, and they want to stay with you, and you want them to stay with you because They're amazing. And in the past, you would have probably said goodbye to them because you would have said, look, I don't have a legal entity in Norway. I can't make it work. You can't be a contractor either. It's too complicated, or I don't know where to start. And now actually companies can employ all over the world in 185 countries and growing. And that has really revolutionized the way we think about work, the way we simplify work. I was a client, actually, as they said, before I came here for the last 5 or 6 years. And I had exactly that problem. I was, this was some years ago, and I had a VP in Latin America who called me one day and he said, I've got a bunch of people in Brazil and Mexico. Can we hire them? They're really good. I'd like them to join my team. I didn't have a local HR team there, didn't speak the language, didn't know where to start. Where do you start? No local presence. You can say no, right? You say no. But I found, through my HR network, this company called Velocity Global, small company at the time, some 8 years ago or so. And they were the experts. They were able to, onboard those people for me, the group of people, and they were able to employ and pay and, organize benefits. And it made it really easy for us and for the company I was working with to go global over time, over the subsequent years with mergers and acquisitions. When you remove those restrictions and you focus on the best talent, regardless where it may be, you are really opening the world. You're opening opportunities for your company, but also for people who may not have had access to work for companies like that because maybe they were in the wrong place. They said we opened up legal entities in Ghana and Kenya last year, and we have engineers working from those countries. And again, a few years ago, that was probably unheard of.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome. Indeed. I wouldn't say it levels the playing field, it broadens the playing field, right? To just so many more people. Just like with remote work, it really broadened the playing field for disabled workers and military spouses and, anybody with a mobility challenge or parents, lots of parents, right? Like it just broadened the world of work, which is so interesting. So, you've got then people who are you can hire people from 185 different countries that are out there, and then it's all managed through your system. What is the hard part of doing that? And is it the tax laws? Is it what part of that is the most challenging, really? What is the hard problem Velocity Global solves here?
Oh, I love your question. I think it's all of it. I think it is terribly complicated, when you are a HR
Yeah,
leader and, you need to do employment around the world, employment in your own country is often complicated enough, making sure that you are compliant, you tick all the boxes, not doing anything wrong, your contracts are up to date, they've been translated in the right way. We had a situation recently with, in Israel with a maternity, leave, and, you need to provide contracts in both languages. And so the complexities are just there. You cannot make an assumption that, with your English contracts, you can do global employment. And so, every country is different. Every country has different labor laws. Every
yeah,
country has different requirements, different processes. There's no system yet in the world that, can run all the global payrolls or all the global compliances or churn out letters in local language. In the Netherlands or in Germany, they have very particular requirements with, wet signatures or stamps, physical stamps, or documents
right.
need to be sent in the post. So even some of the more modern countries are still in the dark ages as it relates to remote work and maybe DocuSign or similar solutions, because you still need maybe a hard copy or a stamp. So it is all those details, all those thousands of details that, you've got to have real experts there. And, I count myself very, very lucky here. He said, I'm surrounded by almost 900 lawyers, HR experts, benefits
Awesome.
experts, tax, immigration, payroll. It's just, you've got so much knowledge here, but that's really what it takes because it is incredibly complex. So we want to simplify it for the clients, but behind the scenes, for sure, it's not that simple.
No, for sure not. I mean, I naively, when I moved from the United States to the Netherlands, I naively thought, how different can it be? Western Europe and the US were so similar. There's so much similarities. The devil's in the details and also in the bureaucracy and in government agencies. I mean, I was working remotely at the time, and this was almost 15 years ago for a company. Um, and that was what I did as a freelancer, but there was no place in the visa checkbox for that kind of worker. Like they were still, so early, nobody knew what it was. So,
Yeah, yeah,
I had to, you have to kind of wiggle around in order to make everything fit together. So I can see the value for sure. Now, you've been in HR for a long time, and on the profile I've seen. And so you've seen a lot of hiring and onboarding. Where do people, I would like to ask, a lot of people ask about hiring and especially onboarding with remote workers. It's a different process. We have to think of it as a different process, though the principles remain the same, I'm assuming.
yeah.
Where do people go wrong with hiring remote workers?
I really like the question, and I would probably say something along the lines of, it's not about the systems, right? You could have a half an hour conversation about all the amazing systems that are out there, all the amazing integrations and, automation opportunities. I would say don't lose your heart in it. I think when you onboard remotely, I think it is how you welcome that person. It's how personalized it is even. And I'm not suggesting you all need to write, manual notes, but even some of the systems don't achieve the personal approach that I'm talking about. And, when you get a laptop and maybe a t-shirt from the company on your first day to welcome you, is that enough? So really think about, as you are remote, you know, is there a buddy system? Is there a person that will talk to you? Is there a person in your time zone that will talk to you? Because it's no good having an invite in your calendar, for a time that maybe you were hoping to go to sleep on that very first day, on that first week. And immediately you think, oh, I've got to stay up to nighttime because, this invite was in my calendar. I don't want to be rude. I want to be a good employee. I want to have a good experience and make a good impression. But think about the details really. And again, when you are doing global employment, don't ever make assumptions. And, some people, it is in their nature. They go out, they find other people, they connect with people. And others I've seen is said, and this is, big learning, they stay in their silo unless you push them out or pull them out or offer them some sort of opportunity to get out of that silo if they want to. And so in other words, if you just say, hi, here's your email, this is your Slack, group, this is your laptop, someone could feel really lost in those early days, those early weeks. And people typically have another offer on the table. People typically, they make a decision, they go with your company. But if it's not a good experience in those very first few days or week, they may think again. They may still have that other offer on the table. They may still be thinking, would this have been a better opportunity? So treat your people right, personalize, make time. Another example is the busy manager. If I'm onboarding remotely in a new company and my manager's too busy to introduce themselves or to have virtual coffee with me, it doesn't feel all that good. And if my manager's at a conference all week, maybe we change my start date. Maybe someone can think of that before I start and make it work better. And so, what does that mean? It means we need to think about it as a people team. We need to think about it as managers. And we really need to own that, right? This isn't something where I can press a button and the system automates the onboarding process. The system will do a lot, right? The system will push out a lot of content. It will share a lot of important information. But that personal connection, what is culture? What is engagement? What motivates me? Those things are not done by a system, right? Those things are the interactions between human beings. And you mentioned it earlier, the desire to be in an office, the desire to connect with people. And when we work remote and we may not have the opportunity to connect in person, Lee said we have people in countries where there is no office, right? We have a few offices, we have a few co-working spaces, but we also have countries in the world where none of that exists. And so
Right.
people don't have a choice to just quickly hop on a plane or hop on a boat to see someone for a few hours. And so we really have to think about the human interaction and that connection piece. So important.
It's true with all the systems and tools and the automizations that come in. I hear this over and over in different ways, and you've reminded me of it again tonight, is that we're not robots. So you can measure our productivity all you want. Yeah, but if anybody's like me, mine goes in waves. Some weeks are better than others. On average, it's fine, but it's a wiggly subject. We are human beings. So I love, like, don't forget the heart in the system, because indeed lots of people have very detailed user manuals and some good videos, but there's nothing like connecting with the human at the other side. So we're getting to the end of our time, but I have a couple of questions for you. One is the difference between the leaders and the people. There seems to be a rift between leaders wanting people to come back to the office and people not necessarily wanting to go back. And you've mentioned before, this is the collision, the trust area. Is it really just trust? Is it real estate? Is there anything else to that?
I think so. I think this is about great leadership, Lisette. You have great leaders and they can lead virtually or in an office. They understand their people. They lead with kindness, maybe. They lead with empathy. They lead with clarity, clear focus, accountability. I've seen it so often play out over the last few years where, if you weren't a good leader before the pandemic, before a lot of this remote work started for a lot of people, it's going to be so challenging in this new world, because when your people don't want to talk to you or your people don't feel like sharing things with you, you sit there and you've lost it, right? You have no connection. You don't get any feedback because they're afraid to talk to you. And that's probably where, you may have an appetite to say, actually, can you all come back? Now, I will put my hand up myself. I have team members in 27 countries in 6 time zones. It is very, very challenging. I wish sometimes I had the opportunity to get everyone into a room. I know when we've been able to do it, we've had great, great outcomes just in a day or two, because you are not restricted by that Zoom call. You're not restricted by the 30 or the 45 minutes. So I will not want to come across as arrogant or blasé, because I understand the pitfalls. I live the pitfalls. There's no
Mm.
longer a good time when we can all meet, in that sort of setup. But at the same time, I have my observations are really that this is about leadership. Again, systems can make it easier, systems can enable, but I think this is about great leadership. And this is about the leader having clarity, the leader having focus, and the leader driving their teams with the systems they have available towards the right outcomes, and the leader being available and being supportive. And so to me, similar to the hybrid conversation, I think that a lot of this lies with the leader, and it lies with the capabilities of the leader. And we've heard this. This has been a talk track that's been ongoing for a few years now as well, where, the leadership skills, the training, the capabilities that we now need, and we've been needing for some time, they are not the same than, even 3, 4, 5 years ago. And so I think it is the ability to embrace this new world. It's the ability to ask questions and to listen to feedback, because how do I operate in this virtual work? I've got to ask for a lot of feedback, because if I just sit here in my virtual office, I can sit here all day long, and unless I engage with my team, I may not have a clue what's going on. So I've got to
Yeah.
actively put myself out there all the time. Takes a lot of effort. So, remote leadership is the opposite of lazy leadership in my view as well, because it takes a lot of hard work. It's a true commitment to engage remotely.
Right, in the way that is useful for your team, because different people
Exactly.
need things to be connected on the team. So I think the real challenge of leadership now is learning why people that you work with show up to begin with, like what drives them to be there, and then designing the environment around that. I mean, that's a whole other complicated problem. But okay, the skill set, as you said, has shifted. The collision happened and the skill set has shifted. So facing that is better than not acknowledging it, because indeed what we see is the future of work is choice for
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
So people that want to go in the office, people that don't, people that want to be together, we are now sort of in a more movable, wiggly I don't like to say wiggly because it's not wiggly. It's more like an amoeba moving through. It's like,
I
an
love that.
evolving thing.
Yeah. I would add to that, you spoke about this earlier, maybe, there's hidden disabilities, there's people who have access to remote work that haven't previously had access to remote work in this way. And, I think people have also become more vocal. We've had so many social debates and so many social movements and so much impact and change in our world and so much unrest. And you're absolutely right. Even to say my team likes this or my team prefers it this way, isn't a statement I can make any longer, because my team consists of 52 people. They're all different. They're in different cultures. They speak different languages. They awake at different times. They have different family setups. They have different duties at home. Everyone is different. And so you're right. This is about getting to know the individual, asking questions and listening a lot.
I love that. You've brought up listening several times. I wrote it in my notes and underlined. I really like that. It's a skill. It's a skill that I've had to learn. Still learning. All right. So we're getting to the end of our time, and I've got two last questions. So one slightly hard and one very easy. Work-life balance is a topic that comes up a lot. So what are your tips for work-life balance in this new amoeba-ish wiggly world that we're in? Because we can now be on anytime, anywhere, any place, all the time, everywhere, all the place. How do how do we manage ourselves? What's the biggest tip for that? Or is it just that we need to manage ourselves?
I think you're onto something here, Lisette. I think it does start with us. This is not about the company policy. This is not about, what the company says, but it is about knowing myself, knowing what I need and understanding, how and when I work best. You said it earlier, performance can go like that. And when we know ourselves and we know the conditions that we need to thrive, my ask to all of the listeners and to myself and to you will always be that you do what's right for you and you don't forget to have joy. The days of remote working are very intense. When you work in global environments, it can be very, 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 long days, and that work-life integration can be very, very challenging. And so, no policy, no chief people officer can come to your door and really fix that for you. But get to know yourself and understand, what are the kind of patterns I'm seeing? What do I need? And it can be little things, right? It can be tiny little things. We had a resilience coach we worked with over the last year, and she had gems like, just get up for 20 seconds and move around. Now, everyone has different things that work for them, right? But
Right.
it can be tiny little things where you go, I'm just going to read something else for 5 minutes. Or do you know what I do? This is the top tip for all your listeners. I put the music on loud in my kitchen and I dance for 2 minutes. And that's the Sarah thing, right? That gets me into a different, kind of frame of mind. But honestly, there's no secret, right? There's no recipe. You've got to figure it out and listen to yourself, listen to what works, and ultimately creating the best environment for you to be successful and to be creative and to be inspired.
I love it. Do what's right for you and don't forget to have joy. Perfect note to end on, I should say. So, the very last question, which is where can people find more about you? I will, of course, link to Velocity Global in the show notes, but online, are you on LinkedIn or Twitter? Where can people find you online?
Yes, I am on LinkedIn. I have a presence on LinkedIn. Always really, really happy to connect with people. I'm also traveling around the world in the next few weeks at various conferences, Future of Work in Toronto in a couple of weeks. Would love to engage with people. I'm in Austin next week as well for the Southwest conference. And I'm always really, really happy to understand from people where they are on the journey and, what we can learn from each other.
Love that. Love that. Thank you so much. So we've come to the end of our time. Thank you so much for all of your great tips. I took copious notes. I am sure that the show notes will be very rich for the listeners. Thank you so much. And until next time, everybody, be powerful.